The soft chime of birds echoed through the fresh morning, the breeze gently swaying the trees, sunlight filtered through the leaves, painting the ground in warm golden hues as the world slowly strayed away, calm, quiet, and full of promise. One stepped through the entrance of the school, the familiar hum of voices and footsteps surrounding her as the day slowly came to life. Just as she entered the corridor, a ripple of excited whispers reached her ears. Why slowed her steps, her gaze instinctively searching for the source of the noise, and then she saw him, JEON, the most talked about boy in the school. One look at him was enough to make her stumble and breaths hitch. He stood there, effortlessly leaning against the lockers, confidence written in the way he carried himself. Laughter danced around him like it belonged there. Beside him stood her brother, Park Jamin, arms crossed, looking completely at ease, as if being next to Jungkook was the most natural thing in the world. Wine gulped and clutched the straps of her bag tighter, keeping her head down. She quickly walked to her locker, trying to ignore the sudden awareness buzzing through her. She opened it quickly, took out her books, and shut the locker with a soft click, her movements careful, almost nervous, as if staying unnoticed was her only goal. Before she could even react, a hand wrapped around her waist and tugged her back. Hey, Vine startled, her books nearly slipping from her arms. Jimin crimped down at her, completely unbothered by her panic. Vine, ignoring us now, he said teasingly. Her heart hummed as she steadied herself. Jimin, what are you doing? She hissed, glancing around nervously. Jungkook turned at the sound of her voice, his gaze landing on her almost instantly. For a brief second, the noise of the corridor faded. His eyes softened, curiosity flicking across his face. Let her breathe, Jungkook said calmly, though there was a faint amusement in his tone. Maya's cheeks formed under his gaze. She tightened her grip on her books, avoiding eye contact. I need to get to class. Jimin raised her brow, clearly unconvinced. You always say that. He laughed, then leaned closer. Relax, we are not going to eat you. Jungkook juggled softly beside him, and Vine saw her heart skipped a bit at the sound. Good morning, Vine, he said simply. She looked despite herself, meeting his eyes for a split second. Good morning, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, and just like that, her calm morning was officially ruined in the most dangerous way possible. She quickly pulled her wrist back, forcing a small smile. Sorry, I'm getting late, she said, not waiting for a reply. Before either of them could stop her, Vine turned on her heel and hurried down the corridor, her footstep quick and uneven. She could feel her heart racing, her cheeks burning as she clutched her back tighter against her chest. Behind her, Jamin let out a low whistle. She's gotten faster. Jungkook's eyes followed Vine until she disappeared around the corner, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Or maybe she's just good at running away. Vine slipped into her classroom just in time, closing the door softly behind her. She leaned against it for a second, taking a deep breath, trying to calm the chaos in her chest. Why does it affect me like this? She thought, shaking her head before straightening up, making her way to her seat, unaware that her day had only just begun. With a sigh, she entered the classroom only to be greeted by yet another chaotic spectacle. The room was buzzing with noise, chairs dragged around, papers flying, voices overlapping in loud arguments. It looked more like a marketplace than a classroom. Vine folded her arms across her chest, raising an unimpressed brow. Great, she muttered under her breath, scanning the mess before stepping further inside. She glanced at her watch. There was still 20 minutes left before the class would start. Letting out a quiet sigh, she shook her head, already knowing those 20 minutes were going to feel much longer in this chaos. She placed her bag on her seat and walked back toward the front of the class. Bringing her hands together, she clapped sharply to get everyone's attention, but the students still didn't listen to her, their chatter only growing louder. Vine groaned in frustration, rubbing her temples as she glanced around the chaotic classroom, wondering if anyone would listen at all, and with a sharp gaze she raised her voice, firm and clear. If you all don't sit on your seats right now, I will deduct marks from discipline. The effect was instant. Chairs scraped against the floor, voices died down, and within seconds the class fell into an uneasy silence. A few students glanced at each other nervously before quickly settling down, pretending they had been quiet all along. Vine exhaled slowly, satisfied. She turned back toward the board, picking up the marker with calm authority, as if the chaos never existed in the first place. Just then, the bell rang sharp and loud, snapping everyone to attention, signaling that the classes were about to begin. Vine quickly slipped into her seat in the middle row, smoothing her skirt and opening her notebook just as the noise around her finally settled. Chairs scraped softly against the floor as everyone hurried to sit properly, the earlier chaos melting into an uneasy silence. She let out a quiet breath, her fingers tightening around pen. The classroom felt different now, calmer but heavy with anticipation of the teacher's arrival. Her eyes flicked toward the door for a brief second before she forced herself to focus on the blank page in front of her, pretending her heart wasn't still racing. Just then a tall figure stepped into the classroom, his presence instantly shifting the atmosphere. Soft murmurs rippled through the room, a few gasps and hushed whisper following close behind him as several girls straightened in their seats, eyes lifting up in awe. One, however, kept her gaze fixed on her diary, her pen moving slowly across the page. Hey everyone, a calm, soothing voice reached her ears, making her look up instantly. There was Jungkook standing at the doorway with Jimin beside him. The room seemed to shift the moment he stepped in. Whispers rippled through the class. Cheers shuffled. Someone actually gasped. Jungkook stood relaxed, hands tucked casually into his pockets, uniform crisp, expression effortless, like he knew the fact he had and didn't bother hiding it. Vine's breath hitched for a half second before she looked back down at her diary, pretending to be far more interested in the empty page than the boy who had just stolen the room's attention. Jimin scanned the class with a grin, elbowing Jungkook lightly. Bro, you're late again. Jungkook shrugged, unbothered, worth it. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, and the only fueled the chaos. A few girls waved, someone whispered his name a little too loudly. Jungkook's gaze moved lazily across the room until it paused just for a second on Vine. She felt it, that unmistakable prickle at the back of her neck. Her grip tightened on her pen, jaw setting as she refused to look up. She pretended to be strange, busy, detached, focusing on the smallest things to calm the chaos inside her. The scratch of a pen, the faint rustle of pages, the ticking second hand of the clock, anything but the way her heart was racing for no reason at all. She kept her eyes lowered, forcing her breathing to steady, reminding herself that this was normal, just another day, just another class. But the warmth lingering beside her, the quiet awareness of his presence, it made impossible to ignore. Vine swallowed, straightened her back, and told herself firmly, get a grip. Yet no matter how hard she tried, her heartbeat refused to listen. Just then both of them moved toward the last desk, took their seats. A fresh wave of whisper spread through the classroom, soft levels following their step. Cheers scrapped, her heads turned, but Vine stayed still, her gaze fixed stubbornly on her diary. Could feel it though, the shift in the room, the subtle pull. She tightened her grip on the pen, pretending to read the same line over and over again, while behind her laughter echoed quietly. Jimin's familiar carefree tone and Jungkook's slow chuckle blending into the background. Don't look back, she told herself, but her heart betrayed her again, beating just a little faster than before. The teacher entered the classroom, his presence immediately cutting through the noise like a sharp command. Everyone settle down, he said firmly. The chatter died instantly. Chairs were pulled in, books opened, and heads bowed toward notebooks. Even Jungkook and Jimin straightened up, their expressions shifting to calm attentiveness. Vine let out a quiet breath she didn't realize she was holding, and finally relaxed into her seat. The classroom filled with the familiar sounds of pages turning and pens scratching against paper. For a while, everything felt normal, and yet somewhere at the back of the room, she could still sense his presence, silent, steady, impossible to ignore. If you're someone new here, make sure to check out my work on Wattpad, BB Writes. Thank you.